What separates the relentless from the rest? It isn't talent. High-grit individuals don't view failure as a signal to stop. They process it as necessary data to solve the puzzle.
Why do some people never quit? Is it just delusion?
No. They process failure differently. They don't see it as a stop sign. They just see it as data.
Huh, that's a whole different frame. It's hitting me now.
Exactly.
Fear. Why do some minds never quit? It isn't stubbornness. Resilient people turn off the fear of judgment. To them, failure isn't an identity. It's just the cost of entry for success.
In the quiet chambers of the human spirit, there exists a force more powerful than talent, more enduring than intelligence, and more pivotal than luck. It is the raw, unpolished capacity to stand amidst the wreckage of failed attempts and shattered expectations, to look into the abyss of the unknown, and to take one more step forward. This is not merely stubbornness, nor is it a blind refusal to accept reality. It is a sophisticated psychological architecture, a unique wiring of the mind that separates those who dream from those who achieve. We often look at the titans of history, the captains of industry, and the masters of art, and we mistake their outcome for their origin. We see the glory, the accolades, and the finished masterpiece, assuming they possessed a divine spark denied to the rest of us. But if you peel back the layers of their journey, you find something far more accessible yet infinitely harder to practice: the psychology of the unyielding. To understand the people who don't give up, we must first dismantle the myth that resilience is an emotion. It is not a feeling, it is a discipline. The people who persist when others fold have mastered the art of cognitive reframing. When the average person encounters an obstacle, their brain signals a stop command, interpreting the friction as evidence that they are on the wrong path. The relentless individual, however, interprets that same friction as traction. They understand that the presence of difficulty is not a sign to turn back, but a confirmation that they are climbing. This shift in perspective is the bedrock of their psychology. They do not seek a life without pain. They seek a life where the pain has purpose. This distinction is critical because it changes the relationship with suffering. Instead of being a victim of circumstance, they become the alchemist of their own struggle, transforming the lead weight of failure into the gold of wisdom. Consider the concept of the dip. In any pursuit of greatness, there's a honeymoon phase where enthusiasm is high and the vision is clear. But inevitably, the excitement fades, the novelty wears off, and the reality of the grind sets in. This is the moment where the graph plummets, the long, arduous valley where effort seems to yield no results. Most people quit here. They quit because the math doesn't seem to add up. They are putting in 100% effort for 0% visible return. But the person who doesn't give up understands the physics of success. Potential energy must be built before kinetic energy can be released. They know that the valley is not a grave. It is a forge. It is in this dark, quiet space that the character is tempered. They realize that if the journey were easy, the destination would be crowded. The difficulty is the filter, designed to weed out those who only want the reward without the sacrifice. At the core of this tenacity is a profound relationship with the self. People who don't give up possess an internal locus of control. They believe deeply that they are the architects of their fate, not merely passengers in a chaotic universe. When things go wrong, they do not look out the window to blame the weather, the economy, or the critics. They look in the mirror. This is not an exercise in self-flagellation, but an exercise in empowerment. If the problem lies within my strategy, my effort, or my execution, then the solution also lies within my power to change. This radical ownership creates an immunity to helplessness. While others are paralyzed by the unfairness of life, the relentless are busy recalibrating their approach. They trade the question, "Why is this happening to me?" for "What does this require of me?" We must also talk about the relationship with failure. To the unyielding, failure is not a defining noun. It is an instructive verb. It is data. It is feedback. The psychological profile of a person who refuses to quit is one that decouples their self-worth from their immediate results. If they fail a test, lose a business, or suffer a rejection, it does not mean they are a failure. It means their attempt failed. This separation is crucial. It protects the ego from shattering under the weight of a stumble. By viewing failure as a necessary mechanism of learning, like a scientist testing a hypothesis, they remove the shame associated with being wrong. They become curious instead of defensive. They analyze the wreckage with the cold precision of a forensic investigator asking, What broke? Why did it break? How do we build it stronger? This turns every setback into a stepping stone, creating a compounding effect of competence that eventually makes success inevitable. And there is a neurological component to this as well. The brain is a prediction machine, constantly trying to conserve energy and keep us safe. When we push beyond our known limits, the brain's alarm systems trigger fear and fatigue to make us retreat to the safety of the known. The people who don't give up have trained themselves to override this biological safety switch. They have engaged in a process of desensitization to discomfort. Just as a callus forms on the hand of a laborer to protect the skin while allowing work to continue, a psychological callus forms on the mind of the resilient. They have exposed themselves to rejection, to exhaustion, and to doubt so frequently that these sensations no longer trigger a flight response. They have normalized the struggle. They can sit with the anxiety of the unknown without needing to resolve it immediately. This high tolerance for ambiguity allows them to stay in the fight long after the adrenaline has faded. Furthermore, these individuals are fueled by a vision that transcends the self. Resilience is often sustained by a why that is bigger than the what. If your motivation is purely improved comfort or status, you will quit as soon as the pursuit of that status becomes more uncomfortable than your current state. However, if your motivation is anchored in a purpose, a desire to serve, to create, to change a family legacy, or to solve a meaningful problem, you tap into a reservoir of energy that is not easily depleted. This purpose acts as a north star in the storm. When the waves of adversity crash over the relentless, they do not look at the waves. They look at the light on the horizon. This fixation on the ultimate objective renders the immediate obstacles insignificant in comparison. They are willing to endure the how because they are possessed by the why. This psychology also involves a mastery of delayed gratification. We live in an era of instant feedback, where likes, clicks, and same-day delivery have conditioned us to expect immediate rewards for our actions. The person who doesn't give up is a relic of a deeper, more ancient rhythm. They are the farmers of the modern age. They understand the season of planting, the season of watering, and the long silent season of waiting before the harvest. They can work for years in the dark, with no applause and no validation, sustained only by their internal conviction. They trust the process of compounding. They understand that the bamboo tree grows underground for 5 years, building a complex root system before shooting up 90 feet in 6 weeks. To the outside world, it looks like an overnight success. To the relentless, it is the simple mathematics of persistence. They do not judge their progress by the harvest of the day, but by the seeds they have sown. The internal dialogue of the resilient is distinctively different. We all have a voice in our heads, the critic, the doubter, the fearful child. The person who refuses to quit does not silence this voice. They simply refuse to let it steer the ship. They acknowledge the doubt, they hear the fear, and then they proceed anyway. They have cultivated a second voice, a commanding voice that speaks with the authority of their highest self. When the doubt says, "You can't do this," the second voice replies, "Watch me." This is not delusional optimism. It is commanded courage. It is the ability to acknowledge the brutal facts of reality, that the odds are stacked, that the resources are low, that the path is steep, while maintaining an unwavering faith that they will prevail. This holds the tension between realism and hope, a psychological state known as the Stockdale paradox. It is the balance of being brutally honest about the difficulties while being absolutely dogmatic about the victory. Moreover, the people who don't give up are masters of adaptation. Persistence is often confused with repetition, doing the same thing over and over again. But true resilience is dynamic. It is water, not stone. If a door is locked, they try the window. If the window is barred, they check the chimney. If the structure is sealed, they dig a tunnel. They are not married to the method, they are married to the mission. This flexibility allows them to navigate around specific roadblocks without abandoning the ultimate destination. They pivot, they tweak, they reinvent. They treat their plans as living documents, subject to revision based on the terrain. This agility prevents them from shattering when a specific path is blocked. They simply flow around the obstacle, their momentum unbroken, their direction unchanged. Let us dig deeper into the concept of identity. For those who give up, a goal is something they want. For those who don't give up, the goal is a reflection of who they are. When a pursuit is merely a desire, it is expendable. When it is an identity, it is essential. The runner doesn't run because he wants to lose weight. He runs because he is a runner. The writer doesn't write for a paycheck. She writes because she's a writer. When you integrate your pursuit into your identity, quitting becomes a form of self-betrayal. It creates a psychological dissonance that is more painful than the struggle of continuing. Therefore, the relentless protect their identity fiercely. They curate their environment, their habits, and their peer group to reinforce this self-image. They surround themselves with other climbers, knowing that resilience is contagious. They create an ecosystem that makes giving up difficult and pushing forward natural. There is also a profound humility in not giving up. It requires the humility to be a beginner over and over again. It requires the humility to look foolish, to ask for help, to admit what you don't know. The ego loves comfort and competence. It hates the messy process of learning. Those who quit often do so because their ego cannot handle the bruising of being a novice, but the relentless have made peace with their imperfections. They are willing to stumble in the light so they can learn how to walk in the dark. They value growth over appearance. They would rather be a master who looks like a fool than a fool who looks like a master. This liberation from the opinion of others unburdens them. When you no longer carry the heavy weight of trying to impress, you have more strength to endure the climb. In the darkest moments, when the resources are gone and the energy is spent, the psychology of the unyielding taps into the power of one more. They do not think about the mountaintop. That is too far. They do not think about the miles remaining. That is too overwhelming. They shrink their world down to the immediate moment. Can I take one more step? Can I write one more sentence? Can I make one more call? By microsegmenting the challenge, they bypass the brain's overwhelm response. They live in the now, focusing entirely on the single action in front of them. This mindfulness in the midst of chaos is their secret weapon. They string together these microscopic victories, these tiny one-mores, until they look up and realize they have crossed the continent. They understand that the only time you can ever give up is in the present, so they simply choose not to do it right now. And they make that choice again and again and again. Crucially, the psychology of persistence is rooted in gratitude. This may seem counterintuitive. How can one be grateful while suffering? But the relentless find gratitude not for the ease of life, but for the opportunity of it. They are grateful for the breath in their lungs, for the chance to fight, for the capacity to feel deeply, even if what they are feeling is exhaustion. This gratitude shifts their energy from lack to abundance. Instead of focusing on what is missing, they focus on what remains. They see the challenge as a privilege, a test that life has deemed them worthy to take. This spiritual fortitude prevents bitterness from taking root. A bitter heart is heavy and slow. A grateful heart is light and resilient. It allows them to find joy in the trenches, to laugh at the absurdity of the odds, and to keep moving with a spirit that is not just enduring, but alive. It is important to recognize that the people who don't give up are not fearless. Fear is a biological constant. The difference lies in their relationship with fear. They do not view fear as a red light. They view it as a compass. They understand that fear usually clusters around the things that matter most. We do not fear the trivial, we fear the significant. Therefore, when they feel that tightening in the chest, that dryness in the mouth, they know they are close to a breakthrough. They lean into the fear, using it as fuel. They transmute the nervous energy into focus. They have learned that on the other side of the wall of fear is the freedom they seek. To retreat from the fear is to retreat from the growth. So they walk directly into the fire, knowing that while it may burn, it will also purify. The narrative they construct about their life is one of the hero's journey. They see themselves as the protagonist in a movie that hasn't finished filming. In every great story, the hero falls. The hero loses the sword, loses the guide, and faces the enemy alone. If the movie ended there, it would be a tragedy. But the relentless know that the low point is not to the end of the script. It is the turning point. This narrative structure gives them patience. When they are in the pit, they tell themselves, this is the part where I get back up. They contextualize their suffering as a necessary chapter in a larger saga of triumph. This storytelling ability is a psychological coping mechanism of the highest order. It gives meaning to the meaningless and imposes order on the chaos. It assures them that as long as they are still breathing, the plot is still twisting. We must also consider the role of obsession. While balance is healthy for a happy life, greatness often demands a temporary imbalance. The people who don't give up are often possessed by a magnificent obsession. They are consumed by their quest. It occupies their waking thoughts and their dreams. This intensity can be alienating to others, but it is essential for breaking through the gravitational pull of mediocrity. This obsession acts as a blinder, blocking out the distractions and the temptations that lead others astray. They do not suffer from FOMO, fear of missing out, regarding parties, leisure, or trends, because they are entirely captivated by their own mission. Their fun is their work. Their relaxation is their progress. When you love the climb more than the view, you become unstoppable. Ultimately, the psychology of those who don't give up is a testament to the elasticity of the human spirit. It proves that we are not defined by our biology or our history, but by our decisions. It is a declaration that the human will is the single greatest variable in the equation of life. These individuals serve as living proof that rock bottom can be a foundation, that wounds can become wisdom, and that the only true failure is the cessation of effort. They remind us that the wall is not there to keep us out. It is there to give us a chance to show how badly we want to get in. They teach us that victory is not an event, but a habit, a relentless, unglamorous, everyday habit of refusing to stay down. As we dissect this mindset, we begin to see that resilience is not a trait you're born with, like eye color or height. It is a muscle. It is built through repetitions of resistance. Every time you choose to stay at the desk when you want to leave, every time you choose to speak up when you want to stay silent, every time you choose to try again when you want to cry, you are building the architecture of a relentless mind. You are rewiring your neural pathways to default to persistence. You are teaching your brain that you are the kind of person who survives. This is the most important lesson of all. You can become one of these people. You can adopt this psychology. It starts with a simple, quiet decision, a decision to make your promise to yourself stronger than your mood. The journey of the unyielding is also a journey of sacrifice. They understand that you cannot have it all. To say yes to the dream is to say no to 1,000 other things. They are willing to pay the price. They are willing to look different, to act different, and to be misunderstood. They accept loneliness as the tuition for leadership. They accept exhaustion as the cost of excellence. They do not haggle with the price of success. They pay it in full, in advance, every single day. This integrity, this wholeness of character binds them to their path. They know that to give up would be to breach a contract with their own soul, and that is a price they are unwilling to pay. And in the silence of the early morning and the exhaustion of the late night, the person who doesn't give up finds a strange kind of peace. It is the peace of knowing they have left nothing in the reserve tank. It is the satisfaction of total exertion. They sleep the deep sleep of those who have fought the good fight. And when the sun rises, they do not ask for a lighter load. They ask for broader shoulders. They strap on their boots. They look at the mountain and they smile. Because they know the secret. They know that the mountain does not care about their feelings, but they also know that the mountain cannot move. And because they can, eventually, the mountain will yield. This is the psychology of the unstoppable. This is the mind of the relentless. This is the beginning of greatness. As we venture deeper into the anatomy of the indomitable spirit, we encounter a concept that transcends mere resilience: antifragility. While resilience is the ability to bounce back to a baseline after a shock, antifragility is the capacity to get stronger because of the shock. The people who don't give up have fundamentally rewired their relationship with chaos. They do not merely endure stress, they require it. Just as a bone grows denser under the load of heavy weight, their character densifies under the pressure of adversity. They understand that a life without challenge is a life of atrophy. When a crisis hits, a market crash, a personal tragedy, a catastrophic failure, they do not ask for a return to normal, and they recognize that normal was what led to the crisis. Instead, they look for the mutation, the adaptation, the upgrade. They use the wreckage of the old structure to build a new one that is immune to the previous threats. This psychological pivot allows them to walk into storms not with trepidation, but with a predatory curiosity, knowing they will emerge on the other side more formidable than when they entered. This brings us to the intricate management of the shadow self. Conventional motivational psychology often focuses entirely on positivity, light, and happiness, but the relentless understand the utility of the dark side. They know how to harness emotions that others deem negative: anger, spite, the need to prove others wrong, and the fear of mediocrity. These are potent nuclear fuels. When the clean energy of inspiration runs out, they switch to the dirty energy of defiance. There's a specific phase in the journey of not giving up where the primary motivation is simply to deny the critics the satisfaction of seeing you fail. It is a raw, primal drive. The relentless person channels their aggression into their craft. They do not lash out at the world. They lash out at the problem. They sublimate their rage into results. This controlled burn of the shadow side provides an explosive thrust that can break through barriers which positive thinking simply cannot scratch. It is the psychological equivalent of a survival instinct, a refusal to die, a refusal to be erased. However, sustaining this fire requires a mastery of energy management, not just time management. The people who last the longest are not necessarily the ones who work the hardest in a 24-hour period, but the ones who recover the best. They treat their biology as the hardware upon which the software of their mind runs. They understand that willpower is a finite resource, depleting with decision fatigue and glucose levels. Therefore, they ritualize their lives to automate the mundane. By creating strict routines, they eliminate the need to make trivial decisions, preserving their cognitive load for the battles that matter. They protect their sleep with the ferocity of a guard dog, knowing that deprivation makes cowards of us all. When you're exhausted, your prefrontal cortex, the center of logic and long-term planning, goes offline, and the amygdala, the center of fear and reactivity, takes over. The relentless prioritize recovery because they know that grit is not just about pushing. It is about having the vitality to push again tomorrow. They respect the biology of endurance. There is also a profound loneliness inherent in this psychology, and the way they navigate it is distinctive. As one climbs the mountain of achievement, the air gets thinner and the crowd gets smaller. The people who don't give up have made peace with solitude. In fact, they have learned to befriend it. They realize that the crowd is often a source of distraction and regression. The average person seeks validation from the herd, terrified of being an outlier. The relentless person accepts that being an outlier is the prerequisite for outstanding results. They stop expecting their friends and family to get it. They release their loved ones from the burden of understanding a vision that they were not given. This liberation is crucial. By ceasing to seek consensus, they free themselves to act with speed and conviction. They find solace in the silence of their own company, using it as a sanctuary for deep work and strategic thinking. They understand that the eagle flies alone, not because it is antisocial, but because the altitude at which it operates is uninhabitable for sparrows. This acceptance of solitude often leads to the curation of a cabinet of the mind. Since they may not have physical peers who match their ambition, the relentless surround themselves with the ghosts of the greats. They read biographies voraciously. They listen to the words of those who have walked the path before them. They create a psychological peer group consisting of historical figures, stoics, generals, inventors, and saints. When they face a dilemma, they do not ask, "What would my neighbor do?" They ask, "What would Churchill do? What would Curie do? What would Mandela do?" By anchoring their standards to the giants of history rather than the norms of their neighborhood, they normalize the extraordinary. They realize that their struggles are not unique, but part of the universal cost of greatness. This historical perspective reduces the sting of their current suffering, framing it as a necessary initiation rite into the lineage of the impactful. Deep within this mindset is also a unique perception of time. The modern world is addicted to the timeline of the microwave. The relentless operate on the timeline of the glacier. They possess cathedral thinking. The builders of the great cathedrals in Europe laid foundations knowing they would never see the spire. They worked for a vision that would only be realized by their grandchildren. Similarly, the person who doesn't give up extends their time horizon beyond their own immediate gratification, and sometimes beyond their own life. They are building a legacy, a body of work, or a movement that is designed to outlast them. This shift from winning now to building forever changes the nature of the frustration. If the goal is to build something that stands for 100 years, a bad month is statistically irrelevant. A bad year is merely a blip. This long-termism acts as a shock absorber, smoothing out the volatility of daily highs and lows. They are playing an infinite game where the objective is not to win a round, but to keep playing. Crucially, the psychology of the unyielding is anchored in process over prize. The amateur is obsessed with the trophy. The professional is obsessed with the technique. When you focus solely on the outcome, the money, the rank, the applause, you place your emotional stability in the hands of factors outside your control. You become fragile. If the reward is delayed, you quit. The relentless individual flips this equation. They derive their dopamine not from the finish line, but from the running. They fall in love with the boredom of consistency. They find a meditative satisfaction in the daily grind, the chopping of wood, the carrying of water. By gamifying the process, by finding joy in the microscopic improvements of their craft, they become immune to the silence of the world. Even if the external rewards never come, they have already won because they have mastered themselves. They have found a way to be successful every single day simply by adhering to their own standards of excellence. This standard of excellence is maintained through a rigorous system of post-action analysis. The relentless are brutally objective about their performance. They do not hide from their mistakes, they autopsy them. However, they do this without self-loathing. It is a clinical detachment. They view their actions as experiments. If an experiment fails, it provides data. They have a feedback loop that is tight and honest. What did I do? What was the result? If the result was poor, what variable do I change? The scientific approach removes the drama from failure. They iterate rapidly. While others are paralyzed by the shame of a mistake, the relentless have already made 3 adjustments and are attempting again. They treat their life like a software in beta mode, always bug fixing, always updating, always optimizing. They are never finished, and therefore they can never be stopped. Furthermore, they possess a weaponized form of memory. The human brain naturally creates a highlight reel of our failures and traumas to protect us from repeating them. The person who doesn't give up consciously overrides this by curating a cookie jar of triumphs. When they hit a wall, when their legs are heavy and their spirit is crushed, they reach into this mental reservoir. They remind themselves of the times they survived. They recall the fever they fought through, the heartbreak they healed from, the project they finished when everyone said it was impossible. They use their own history as evidence of their capability. They say to themselves, "I have been in the fire before, and I did not burn. I will not burn now." This self-referential confidence is unshakable because it is based on empirical fact, not empty affirmations. They know who they are because they remember what they have endured. Let us also examine the concept of burning the boats. There comes a point in the psychology of the relentless where a decision is made that cuts off the possibility of retreat. Historical commanders would burn their ships upon landing on enemy shores, leaving their soldiers with only 2 options: victory or death. The relentless apply this to their modern pursuits. They remove the safety net. They do not have a plan B, because they know that having a plan B inevitably distracts from plan A. As long as there is a safe harbor to retreat to, the human mind will not fully deploy its resourceful genius. It is only when the back is against the wall, when the bridge is ash behind you, that the brain unlocks a level of creativity and ferocity previously inaccessible. They manufacture necessity. They put themselves in positions where they must succeed, knowing that pressure is the only thing that creates diamonds. In this relentless pursuit, they also master the art of strategic ignorance. We live in an information age where we are bombarded with reasons why things won't work. The news, the statistics, and the well-meaning advice of peers often form a chorus of negativity. The people who don't give up practice a selective deafness. They choose not to know the odds. If they knew that 90% of businesses fail, or that only 1% of artists make a living, they might never start. So they ignore the statistics, operating under the assumption that they are the exception. They protect their vision from contamination. They understand that a vision is a fragile thing in its infancy, easily crushed by the cynicism of the realists. So they guard it. They keep their biggest dreams close to the vest, sharing them only with those who have the capacity to fuel them. They are careful not to cast their pearls before swine, lest they be trampled. A pivotal element of this psychology is the transition from motivation to discipline to identity. Motivation is a feeling. It is weather. It comes and goes. Discipline is a command. It is policy. It is doing what needs to be done regardless of the weather. But the highest level is identity. This is when the action becomes an intrinsic part of who you are. You don't have to motivate yourself to brush your teeth. You just do it because you are a person with hygiene. Similarly, the relentless do not have to motivate themselves to persist. Persistence is their hygiene. It is their default state. When the behavior becomes automatic, the friction of starting disappears. They no longer negotiate with themselves. The debate is over. The alarm rings and the feet hit the floor. There is no internal conference regarding whether they feel like it. They have transcended the need for inspiration. This transcendence touches on the spiritual. Whether religious or not, the person who doesn't give up often views their struggle through a spiritual lens. They see their life as a testing ground for the soul. They believe that they are being forged for a specific destiny, and that the adversity they face is not a punishment, but a preparation. This gives their suffering a redemptive quality. They believe that they have a responsibility to their potential. To die with their music still inside them, to leave their gifts unopened, is the ultimate sin. This sense of duty propels them. They are not just working for themselves, they are working to justify their existence, to pay rent for the space they occupy on this planet. They feel a cosmic obligation to manifest what is within them. Within this framework, they develop an immunity to the gap. The gap is the distance between where they are and where they want to be. For most, staring into the gap causes anxiety and depression. It highlights their inadequacy. But the relentless stare into the gap and see a map. They reverse engineer the chasm. They break the impossible journey down into actionable mechanics. They do not get dizzy looking up at the summit. They look down at their boots. They focus on the mechanics of the step, the angle of the foot, the breath, the pace. They find sanity in the mechanical. By focusing on the inputs rather than the outputs, they regain control. They know that if they take care of the steps, the summit will take care of itself. The psychology of the unyielding is also characterized by a high frustration tolerance. Learning anything new, building anything great, involves periods of intense stupidity and clumsiness. It involves feeling incompetent. Most people hate this feeling so much that they quit to regain their sense of smartness. The relentless are willing to feel stupid for as long as it takes. They sit with the confusion. They wrestle with the puzzle. They do not panic when they don't have the answer. They have a childlike willingness to ask why and how repeatedly. They are not trying to look smart, they are trying to get it right. This humility allows them to remain in the learning phase long after others have abandoned it out of embarrassment. As we analyze their relationships, we see that they are often the givers of strength. Because they have learned to manufacture their own energy, they become a source for others. They are the rocks in the stream. This role reinforces their resilience. When you are responsible for holding others up, you cannot fall. The weight of leadership, of being the one who breaks the cycle of poverty or trauma for a family, acts as a brace for the spine. They cannot quit because too many people are watching. Too many people are depending on their example. Their success becomes a permission slip for others to dream. This interconnectedness elevates their struggle from a selfish pursuit to a communal crusade. Ultimately, the person who doesn't give up understands the compound effect intuitively. They know that the results of consistency are not linear, they are exponential. A penny doubled every day for 30 days becomes over $5 million. But on day 20, it is only $5,000. The magic happens in the final days. The relentless have the foresight to endure the flat days, the days, months, or years where the compounding hasn't kicked in yet. They trust the math of the universe. They know that every rep, every page, every cold call is a deposit in an account that will eventually yield interest. They do not check the balance every day. They just keep making deposits. In the final analysis, the psychology of people who don't give up is a celebration of the human will. It is a testament to the fact that we are the only species capable of overriding our instincts. We can choose to suffer for a meaning. We can choose to override the biological imperative to conserve energy. We can choose to die for a cause or live for a dream. The relentless are the highest expression of this freedom. They remind us that we are not leaves blowing in the wind, but captains of the ship. They teach us that the storm is not the master, the sailor is. So, as you stand before your own mountains, as you face the silence of your own doubts, remember that this psychology is available to you. It is not reserved for the chosen few. It is a coat that you can put on. It is a decision you can make. You can choose right now to be the person who stays. You can choose to be the person who endures. You can look at the wreckage of your plans and say, I am still here. And in that declaration, in that quiet defiance, you join the ranks of the immortals. You become part of the lineage of those who built the world, not because they were smarter, not because they were stronger, but simply because they refused to go home. The door to greatness is heavy, and it has no handle on the outside. It must be pushed from within, and it only opens to those who push until their hands bleed, and then push once more. This is the way. This is the truth. This is the psychology of the unyielding.